Hi guys, today I am dyeing a full doll, which I have never done before. You might have seen my other video on this channel where I'm dyeing a doll head to match the body, and that was fairly successful. Although after doing the face up and stuff, the head ended up way darker than the body, so maybe I didn't need to go too hard on the dye. But anyway, it was for experience, but today I am dyeing a full doll, all the joints, the head, everything. And the doll in question is this one right here. And he's a hybrid, doll nudity. I always don't say that until it's too late. But like, you can kind of expect that if I post unboxing and stuff. Anyway, this is a Zaga doll Talon head, and then a Dream Valley B413 body. And they're similar in tone. At first I was worried about matching, but I'm sure a lot of people know Dream Valley's white is like paper white, and then the head is quite similar. It has a bit more of a rosy, like if I had to pick an undertone for either of them, like this one is much more yellow and this one is much more pink. Or I have a magic eraser right here. This is kind of, you know, so I feel like, yeah, we'll see how it goes. The color in question of, you know, what am I dyeing the doll, although it's in the title of this video, is a light pink, which I'm so excited about. I've always wanted to dye a doll like a light pink color, but like very obviously unnatural pink, you know, not like a pink realistic skin tone. And so I'm gonna do that today because I've never seen any tutorials or videos or anything of people doing a light pink. So that'll be interesting too, because I don't really have anything to go off of, like a strict tutorial for getting the color that I want. I'm gonna kind of just have to wing it. And to be completely honest, the video that I already have is probably gonna be my main guideline for remembering the process. Oh, you just saw my dog's tail. And so I'm gonna kind of be going off of that, but I am going to be reciting each step that I do, how much water I use, how much dye I use, how long I hold the pieces under the water. Keeping in mind that this is my first time doing it, so it, you know, it might not be great, you know, my instructions, but we're gonna see how it goes. And so the first step is going to be unstringing this guy and washing all of the individual pieces to make sure they don't have any sort of dust or anything on it. And to do that, I'm gonna be washing the doll like normal with soap and water and a magic eraser. Some people sand the dolls beforehand to try and create texture for the dye to stick. I'm not gonna do that because I feel like that would make the dye turn out terribly uneven. So I'm just gonna normal wash, and then we will start with the process. Okay, everything's washed. I totally forgot to mention that I've tied everything to a string so I can dip it in the dye. And word of advice, tie everything to a string before you wash, because I washed one of these forearms first, and then getting the string in while the piece was wet was an absolute nightmare. So tie the string on and then wash. And so yeah, every little piece is tied to a string except for the head cap, which I will use some sort of like spoon or a ladle for instead. While my water is boiling, I'm going to explain what I did and also the tools that you need. So obviously you need a pot and you need measuring spoons for the dye, and these guys, you want to make sure you don't use them for food. So get a separate pot and a separate measuring spoon set that you strictly only use for dye, because of the chemicals and everything. You don't want that in the stuff that you're cooking. Then, like I said before, string so that you can dip the limbs. And I also have a ladle, spoon, something for the head cap. Some people use tongs, but I was worried that that would maybe create some marks, so I'm gonna use a ladle. Then I have magic eraser to wash with beforehand. We obviously have our dye, and I'm using Rit Dye More in Super Pink. The more in Rit Dye More is super important because that's the synthetic dye. If you get the original Rit dye, it won't take because that's just meant for fabrics. You're gonna want a separate bowl because after dyeing the pieces, you're gonna wanna dunk them into cool water for a little bit. And then we have dish soap for washing and for adding to the mixture. So right here, I have 16 cups of water. In my previous video, I did 30 because it seems like everyone was using 30 cups of water, but this time around I realized I don't really need that much. So I did 16 because I had a large measuring cup that fit 4 cups, so I did 4 of those. And then I added, oh my goodness, excuse my dog for a second. Sorry about that. What I was saying was that you want to add maybe like a teaspoon of dish soap. It's supposed to help with the marbling and streaking and making sure the dye goes on more smoothly. I don't know, I did it. So here is the water boiling with some dish soap in it. I'm gonna bring it to a boil. I'm gonna add the dye and then I'm gonna reduce the water to maybe like a medium, like a 5 or a 6. And then you really want to keep the water at that temperature. That's the most important part because any change in temperature can change what the color is going to look like. And that's also why you can't really take breaks and do like half the doll one day, half the doll another, because the color can end up being really inconsistent. So it's gonna be a bit of trial and error and we'll see what happens. Okay, so right now before I get into the actual doing, I'm going to try and explain my thought process, and then as I go, I'll probably put the video on silent, maybe do a voiceover over top, but I'm just gonna explain right now what I think I'm gonna do. So I am going to add, to start off, I'm gonna add a teaspoon of the pink into that 16 cups of water, and I'm gonna see how that goes. People say you can do a paper towel test to see the color, but it's such a different material than resin, so I don't really know how that's gonna go. I'm probably gonna use one of the elbow joints first, and it's gonna be trial and error. I'm going to dunk it in for maybe like 10 seconds and maybe like 30 seconds, and if that's not doing anything, I might add more dye. And I will tell you guys what I'm doing every step of the way. In the end, it might end up being this kind of like, you know, loosey-goosey, winging it, and I might just like, you know, looking at the color, does this look the same, and like kind of forget about the timing. I'm going to try not to do that, but as much as possible, I'll try to tell you guys how much dye is in the pot, how long I'm holding the limbs in the water, and then we'll see how that goes. And so yeah, real quick for the end of the process before I jump into it, dunk, dye, swirl around, put it in a bowl of cold water, and then set it out to dry. And then at the very end of the process, you want to wash the doll pieces to get all of the dye residue off. It shouldn't take away the color. I am not going to use a magic eraser. The first time I did it, I washed it with magic eraser and that erased some of the dye and I needed to go back in. And so I'm just going to use my soap and water, wash the doll like normal, and then leave everything to dry, which will probably end up being overnight. And then tomorrow I'll show the final results and hopefully it looks good. All right, now we'll get back to the actual dyeing. Okay, so I'm starting with a tiny piece. I'm using a little elbow joint in case something goes wrong and I can easily buff it out or it's easily hidden. And here I am adding another teaspoon of pink dye. I started out with 1. This is currently 2 teaspoons to give it a bit more depth. And here I am trying that paper towel technique, but it's still pretty light. I don't know, it's different materials. I find they don't really, you know, compare. And so I just keep kind of going back and forth and comparing the resin to the white resin, and if I see a difference. This is a 3rd teaspoon that's going in, and I'm kind of really just practicing, you know, what feels good until I get a rhythm. And this is the 4th teaspoon, and this is where I cap it. So for the whole entire video, I only do 4 teaspoons of the dye as a whole. That is what I end up doing. And here I'm showing what some pieces look like. I've sort of found my rhythm and comparing it to the white. And so the time that I ended up going with is 1 minute and 30 seconds. So this is the concrete formula that I'm using, guys. It is 4 teaspoons of pink in 16 cups of water and holding it under for 1 minute and 30 seconds. I probably could have done more dye with less time, but I figured out something that works, and so that's what's working. Here I am doing the torso piece. Another error I made was that the strings are way too short. I definitely could have made them longer so I don't burn my hands. And here I'm also using the spoon because I realized I should have got a skinnier pot or filled it up with more water because the water is just barely covering the torso piece. Same with the chest piece, you'll see. And I had the same issues with the head as well. It's like the water is just hovering above those pieces. And so if I really wanted to dangle them in the water and drag them all smoothly, I really should have gotten more water. This is me showing off the torso piece, and it's way smoother than I thought. So I'm very, very, very happy with that. And lastly, I'm doing the head. I had a weird problem with this. The magnets on the head kept like magnetizing to the bottom of the pot, which I thought was good at first. I was like, oh, this is easy. But doing that kind of caused the dye to get darker around the hairline, which I'll show in a couple seconds. You can see me kind of being stressed about that, and I tried buffing it out with a magic eraser. But overall, I think it did really good, and I'm excited for you guys to see the results. Okay, so all of it is done. Here are a couple pieces before I officially wash them. The color is beautiful. There is some streaking in some spots, but it's not too bad. Like this one, for example, you can kind of see some spots, and then back on like this shoulder right there, but that's not really going to be seen, and from a distance it's giving what I want. The head cap is a little splotchy, but that's okay because we're not going to see that. And the head, which the actual face part is very smooth, but as you can see near the hairline it is way darker. I tried to buff it out on the back of the neck with a magic eraser to see if it would do anything, but it kind of made it worse, so I'm just going to leave it. I explained in the other video, but the head kind of like magnetized itself to the bottom of the pot, and I was thinking, oh, perfect, that's fine. But maybe something about it being deeper in the water caused it to be darker near the hairline. But it's nothing that I can't fix with a little blushing, and also his hair sort of hangs on his forehead anyway, so I don't think you're actually going to see that. Okay, so everything is washed. It's not the best lighting because it's getting dark out and my kitchen lights are fairly warm, so I will check back in again in the morning with natural lighting. But I will go over everything. Excuse my shadows, trying to figure out how to do this without shadows. So yeah, some pieces have a little unevenness, but I think for the most part, it kind of just looks like a natural shadow. I'm so glad that the torso turned out good because like the chest piece won't really be seen as much as the torso would in clothes. The joints are the ones that kind of have the most unevenness in places. I'm not sure why, but it's just, that is what it is. The upper arms also, you can't really see, oh, you can kind of see it there. The upper arms aren't that great, like they do have lines, like you can very clearly see that. But again, I'm hoping it just adds to the natural contour of skin. The hands turned out okay. You can kind of see that. I'm in the middle of contemplating right now if I want to try and go in with a magic eraser for the inside. This one is not bad though, so I might try with this one just a little to try and get rid of that line. We'll see what happens. The feet look great. Everything else, like there's another kind of uneven little piece, but for the most part it turned out really well. And then yeah, the head has some marbling, and then yeah, the face, it is what it is. I'm glad it's the hairline and nowhere else because that'll be hidden. I'm mostly impressed that all of the colors stayed in the same like hue. And none of them are drastically darker than all the rest. They look like they're in the same family. I'll get a better, understanding of what that will look like once I finally restring, but I don't want to restring until I'm positive that the color is what I want, because the holes like here, These holes are tiny. My hook is not gonna fit through there, so I'm gonna have to use like a sewing needle or something to get the string to go through. But yeah, I am gonna let this guy dry, check back in the morning, put him together, put the eyes and wig and clothes on, and yeah, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, it's the morning and I put him together. So I'm just gonna kind of go head to toe and try and give close-ups of all of the parts. So yeah, you can see around the hairline, it got a little dark, but any wig that I put on him would cover that anyway. And the head cap has some spots on it, but again, you don't really see that. The arms are another thing, like you can see that line on his right, or on both arms, honestly. There's some lines there. But again, it's not too bad. Some lines on the thigh joints and the thighs a little bit. But I tried wiping it off. The feet kind of ended up like a tiny bit darker than the rest of the body, but that's fine. Oh, and there's a little, you can see on like his right pec, there's kind of a little bit of like what looks like a splash or something. But what I was saying was I tried to, you can see right here in the hairline, I tried to take a magic eraser to it to see how easy it would be to scrub off. And I don't think I'd be able to do that, like it wouldn't get very even. And so any sort of marbling I kind of just left there. Now let's excuse the water and the dog hair. Oh my gosh, my hands were wet. But yeah, I'm gonna put his wig on and some clothes. I already have his eyes, and I'll be right back. Okay, I have dressed him. Don't mind how fluffy the wig is. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen the saga of me posting on my story about this yesterday. But this wig, I'll post a photo of it in a second. It used to be really pale pink, and it was so curly and nice because this OC, like, he has curly hair. And I got it from Leak World, and it was kind of expensive. But then I was like, oh, it's a little too pale now, because I always pictured his pink hair to be like a little darker than his skin tone, and the hair was lighter than the skin tone. And then I had this, what I thought at the time was this magical idea of, oh my gosh, I can just dye the wig. Like, it's synthetic dye. And if the dye doesn't take, then fine, it's not gonna ruin the wig. Or so I thought. I don't know why I didn't think about the fact that dunking the wig in hot water would take the curls out. I think it's because I have a lot of dolls, like Playline dolls, where if you dunk curly hair in hot water, nothing will happen unless you really aggressively brush it out. But yeah, I'll post a picture right now what the wig used to look like. And so now it is this. The color is much better, but now it's just a completely straight wig. Like, the curl is completely gone. So we're working with this. I've ordered a somewhat similar-ish, hopefully, wig from Legend Doll. And it's just gonna be a journey to find the right wig. If I can get this to be less puffy, like, it does look good. Like, it looks kind of just like this like mohair wig almost. I just hate that I ruined a good quality curly wig, because I feel like short curly wigs, like nice looking curly wigs, are kind of few and far between. Anyway, that's besides the point. This is the doll. If you can't tell, he's pink themed. His name is Adrian. I have a highlight for him on my Instagram. And yeah, he's gonna be like a pink monochrome doll. So pink hair, pink skin, pink eyes, pink face up, pink clothing. And yeah, so I am very, very happy with the dye all in all, and it hasn't been scratching or anything. A couple of people have asked me if I'm gonna seal it, but I haven't seen anyone seal a dyed doll before, honestly, and I haven't had problems with the head that I dyed, although I guess that is sealed, but I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But I think he is very cute. Like, smooth down this hair. And yeah, this was my journey of dyeing a doll. There will probably be more in the future. I want to dye my demon boy's horns. I don't know if that would be a full video though, or it might just be an Instagram post, but I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, that is it for this video, and I will see you in the next one.